This is a great turnout. I'm really happy with this. I'm Otis Wheeler. I'm the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, which is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization dedicated to what we feel is Greenfield's best asset, it's downtown. The format tonight is we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping, a couple community updates, and then we'll introduce the candidates and the moderator, and we'll have 1 hour for the forum portion of the evening. And if anyone wants to stay past that, the bar will be open for a little bit, and we can mingle. So I'm just going to start off with, I'm going to go right into the community update side of things. We have a couple business owners that I wanted to invite up to the stage to make a quick announcement. One of them is Nick Perry. Nick, are you here?
Oh,
Hi, how's it going? My name is Nick Perry. I'm a Greenfield resident of 3 years. This year I decided to open up a bicycle shop here in downtown Greenfield. Bike fans, that's great. I got a space picked out. It's right next door to here, the old bridal shop. I am so green to this whole process. It's been like 4 months of really stay green. Yeah, I'll stay green. It's been like 4 months of planning. I'm just like, I feel so cold to this whole process. But I'm here to say that I'm desperately looking for funding for this project right now. There is a website, sadiesbikes.com. You can check out more about me. You can check out more about the shop. It's also got my business plan. I have cards on me tonight, so I can hand out cards if you'd like. I'm really psyched about it. Yeah, and so that's my main message is I've been a bike mechanic for well over a decade. Marilyn can attest to what a great bicycle mechanic I am. Yeah, and this has been my dream for so long. And it's really, this is the year I wanted to open in the spring, right around the corner from the farmer's market. I'm just so psyched. So much more to say, but I'm going to cut it off there. Thanks so much for hearing me out.
Thank you, Nick. Next up, Sarah Lanzolata and Paul Lebrecht of the Root Cellar and 10 Forward.
thank you, Ernest. Yeah, so me and Paul's been working at the Root Cellar for 2 years as the sound engineer and just general loving person that takes care of the spot. And I've been looking there since December, and we just bought the business. It's now called 10 Forward, and we have a new website. It's 10forwardartsvenue.com or .org actually, .org. And yeah, you can look at our calendar. We have lots of great, mostly kind of like experimental music and dance and poetry and different types of stuff going on all the time. So check it out. I'm so glad.
We just want to let everybody know that we're excited to be part of this community, we're part of downtown, and we're doing what we can to help everybody else. We're doing what we can to help everybody else, and want to just extend our invitation to people to come in. We're very open, loving place, and come visit us.
Thank you, Paul and Sarah. I'm a big fan of 10 Forward. Lastly, book just came out, Strong Towns, A Bottom-Up Revolution to Rebuild American Prosperity by Chuck Marone. Chuck Marone runs a website called Strong Towns. I recommend this book for anybody that's interested in municipal government, all 6 of you. Actually, every one of you is here tonight, I think. And we're actually going to provide a copy for each of our candidates in thanks for their participation tonight. I want to thank Hawks and Reed for accommodating us and let us rent this space tonight. I want to thank Magpie and Rise Above for donating some delicious treats. And I want to thank our board of directors, which I won't name, but there's about 10 of us who helped to make the neighborhood association happen. We're still figuring it out. If you want to keep up with us, you can like our Facebook page, again, Downtown Greenfield Neighborhood Association, or you can sign up for our mailing list at downtowngreenfield.org. That's it for the community update portion of the evening. I got to check my notes on my phone here. Now for the forum. Throughout history, a pattern has emerged. Humans die, nations fail. It's not all going to be this dark, trust me. Corporations go bankrupt. I'm not going to touch that one. But what stays? Cities. Cities seem to be eternal. Once they're founded, they're rarely abandoned. Greenfield has been a city now for 16 years. And we basically just got our learner's permit. Anyone who's, we're in our terrible teens, but we're figuring it out. Someday someone's going to let us off to college. But for the past 10 of those years, William Martin has presided as mayor. And so to make a few remarks about where we've been and where we're going, I'd like to welcome Mayor Martin.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Lois and Tim. What a great time to rep the place. Never left that microphone. Lights a little bright over there. This is a great turnout. This is what the community is all about. Bringing together people to discuss community events. The organization created by Otis and Kim is really a new focus for downtown. I think it's going to be very helpful in the future. I think it's also going to create its own momentum. City for 16 years. Greenfield's been around for 267 years. It's not so much what it is as where it is. It's always been the center. It's the center even today, by 91 and Route 2. But years ago it was the beginning of the Mohawk Trail, with Connecticut, Fall River, Green River. This is where it was all happening. Life, community. 16 years ago, when we moved into a different form of government, which is the city, Mayor Forgy had an enormous job to convert and transition from centuries of representative government to the city. Did a fantastic job. It must have just been incredibly difficult to move in that direction and create all the new policies and the new procedures and committees and so on. But that was done. When I was elected in 2009, I didn't expect to be around that long. Actually, I said I was one term. I was kind of like the gap man, I called myself. And hopefully to get in and out, keep things organized, get some catalyst going for stimulating the economy and creating some expanding tax base, but also to bring in new ideas, younger people with new energy and new ideas. So even though that was delayed and it's happening now, I've been people are saying, well, geez, how do you feel about that? And I keep saying that, you know, at the end of the tunnel, I see this light getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that's kind of like it is. 10.5 years. We were able to do so much because Mayor Forgy did so much. And so when we were able to go back to the charter and create charter directions, you know, Councilor Mark Burson was part of that, David Singer and others, they said we should have certain things. So I went to the charter as a guide and tried to move it forward, creating central maintenance, creating a focus for what Greenfield would be. And at the same time, the Green Communities Act came out in 2008, and so we really followed that. And we used that for a guideline. And we became, it's debatable between East Hampton and Greenfield who had the first designation for green community, but we know we had the first application. When they announced the first wave of green communities, they did it in Greenfield, Mass. And that too was a pleasure. And then from that, we kept developing ideas that would save people money, but would give us our independent identity. So we formed Greenfield Power, Light and Power Company. A really great idea. It wasn't ours. Greenfield sold theirs after they had started it in the 1880s and sold it in 1939. So we just recreated that Greenfield Light and Power and created electrical aggregation where we buy all the electricity for the entire city at a price and on the open market where we get a better price than Eversource. We have maintained that better price than Eversource over time, but right now we're a hair above Eversource. So congratulations to Eversource for bidding us for the first time. But they buy every 6 months. We're on a fixed rate for 2 years. So they're definitely going to be inching up, and we're going to stay the same. We also created another thing, because we all know internet seemed to be an invention that came so slow. I remember my first computer, and it was great. That was after I had graduated from the Commodore 64. Never remember that? That's back away. So I had the IBM. And the internet has become very important for a number of reasons that we're all aware of. But we needed to control our own because we don't have anyone else accommodating our interest, our need, and even our price. So we took the really risky step of going out on our own. We had two great advantages. One, our government in the 1920s agreed to put up a fire line. And it went all across town at the top of the communications level that's described on telephone poles. And we had this fire line. So if we didn't need it, we would still have that space. So what we did is communicate to all the people that were really signed up for the fire line and convert it to a wireless fire system. So our fire department could still respond, but we wouldn't need the hard wire. So in place of the hard wire, we put fiber optics. At the same time, the state was coming through with the huge broadband program, and they went through Greenfield. When they came up 91, they went to west of Albany and east to Boston. They went through Greenfield 7.2 miles, and it didn't cost us a penny, so we took that design of 7.2 miles, created a core and a couple of designs to move it into all of Greenfield, and saved a lot of money. We now have over 1,200 customers in GSET, and GSET added television. One last comment is that this has not gone unnoticed by Comcast, and and we are adding customers on a monthly basis. Just a quick sidebar. If all of Greenfield, or a good 70%, 75% of it, would sign up for GSET, I know it has to be completely built out throughout the community, our taxes would go down. Think of it that way, because the income, the savings from everyone, would still arrive with a new revenue source for the city of Greenfield that could then use those funds from everything from infrastructure to education to running departments. So we would be using our own profit. So I can understand why some corporations go bankrupt, because they use your profit money and then leave. So Greenfield would be using your profit money, which we all own, and put it back into our budget. It's a crazy idea, but it really works if you don't get onto GSEC. One couple of last comments. The location of Greenfield is going to carry itself into the future. We've set a lot of bases and fundamentals and opportunity. The next mayors are going to move this city forward and forward and forward, creating new opportunities, new jobs. We've done, for instance, on the Lunt property on Federal Street, that was assessed for $2.3 million and it was contaminated and we had to take it through bankruptcy court and take ownership of the property. Well, soon that property will be sold completely from the city to the new owner, and the owner and the assessed property will be closer to $8.5 million. So that's a quadrupling of the tax base. That's the idea to move that forward in the tax base. On a citizen level, some people just aren't very nice. We need to be nicer. A friend of mine called me today and said, Slater, you're on Facebook. I said, I am. Yeah, what? I didn't give any pictures or anything. What happened? He says, well, they're talking about you. They were. They weren't nice, but they didn't have the truth. They didn't have the accurate information. They didn't have any questions of me other than a couple of horrible emails I received today that I'll respond to. And we always try to respond back to people that communicate with us. But let's just be nice. And if we say so many positive things, just the positive things are going to be picked up by so many others. Hopefully younger people with pure energy and great ideas. Like, who would think that the bicycle shop should be right next door? But it used to be right over there. Like Clark's Sports Shop. So I know I've taken enough time. I want to thank you all. It's really been an honor for me personally to be the mayor. I was born here. I'm not going to die here. I'm going to go somewhere else to die. But nice place. I want to be here, hang around with these young youngsters and all this new energy, and I'm going to become a bee hunter. Joking, Rachel. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, for your remarks. So we want to get started with the forum, but I'm going to hand things off at this point to another member of the Neighborhood Association, Genevieve Lawler.
So yes, my name is Genevieve. Very much in the light here. I'm on the board of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. I'm also a homeowner downtown landlord, lady. I work downtown. My family and I eat and shop and regularly attend events and meet friends and just are pretty enmeshed in the downtown, and because it's so wonderful. So it's really awesome to see so many people here for a downtown in Mayoral. A little note on how we chose our mayoral candidates. They won the preliminary election. Pretty cut and dry. The questions you have here, they were submitted by email, and they were vetted and chosen by our moderator, who I'll introduce soon, and also authorized by the Neighborhood Association. None of the questions were given to the candidates in advance. So if you haven't turned off your cell phones or silence them or whatever, do so now. And since there's so many people here, if we can keep kind of interstitial chatter to a minimum, so we can just get to the questions. And yes, I'd like to welcome Roxann and Sheila to the stage.
Didn't break it, Bill.
And I'd also like to welcome tonight's moderator. Tonight's moderator is Insia Mohammed Burja of Amherst. Insia holds a master's degree in city planning from MIT. Was a mass development fellow for the Holyoke Innovation District, and currently works as a cooperative developer at the ICA Group, where she helps businesses transition to employee ownership. So thank you so much for being here.
Is this the mic I should be using?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I feel famous, thank you. I love downtowns, and I'm an urban planning nerd, so it gives me so much joy to be here. I'm going to introduce the format of the discussion today. We're going to keep it very tight. I will ask a question, and each candidate will get 90 seconds to respond, so it's very quick. Tim will keep time and will give us a 15-second or 30-second warning? 30-second warning when we are approaching the end of that time. I may then ask a follow-up question. You will each get 30 seconds to respond to that follow-up question. Candidates may also get an additional 30 seconds if one of you mentions the other person and that requires a response. Then we'll give you 30 seconds each additional. Does this all make sense?
Pretty much.
Okay. The questions are hard, but they're very good. Okay. So let's start with the first question. This is our first set of questions is big picture. And the first question is, what is downtown's role in Greenfield's economic future? And I will start with Roxann, and then we'll toggle back and forth a little bit.
Good evening, folks. And just let me, it seems like Bill Martin is actually interviewing for the comedy thing downtown. Anyway, we'll try to be funny too as we do this. I'm delighted to be here to talk about the thing that I love to talk about most, which is creating a vibrant, sustainable, and inclusive downtown. And I want to thank Roxann Reed, one of our downtown successes, and also the Downtown Neighborhood Association for having us be here and have the opportunity to talk about that. The way I feel about downtown is what we're going to do going forward is to build on our successes, some of those successes that Bill was talking about. Our fabulous, extraordinary internet service that will allow us to attract new businesses in all sectors, but especially in software. We can talk about our location at Route 2 and I-91, which Bill mentioned, which I think is a great way to start also attracting more businesses, as well as our relative affordability, our growing transportation, and some very creative people wanting to come to town to do businesses downtown. It was my pleasure to be here this evening, and I can't wait to talk some more about it.
So the way I think about downtown mostly isn't just as the economic center. I also think this is the cultural center of Greenfield. This is where people come to, this is not just where people work, it's not just where they own businesses, but this is where people spend time. This is where we meet with our friends to have dinner or to have drinks. And I think that by nurturing the downtown, we're not just taking care of businesses there, we're also taking care of our way of life, what makes Greenfield such a great place to live. And I think that all of those things sort of wrapped up in together as an ecosystem, and we continue to treat it like that bigger system, where it's not just about, bringing in, whatever kind of business at any, cost. We want to preserve the character of our town. We want to make sure that these businesses are treating their workers with respect. We want to make sure that all of our neighbors feel welcome in those businesses, using those businesses, and that they're going to be here long term. So we don't want people to come in and leave. I know that sometimes businesses don't necessarily, it's really thrive. Sometimes that's not their fault, but we don't want to be, a pilot program for somebody else. We want people who are more committed to being our downtown, and I think that's something we see here in this audience. Is we see a lot of people who aren't just business owners, they are neighbors and they are community
members. So another big picture question. Do you think downtown Greenfield has changed in the time that you've lived here? How would you describe those changes? And we'll start with you, Sheila.
I actually haven't lived here that long, and still I would say that downtown Greenfield has changed quite a bit. Fox and Reed has not been here the entire time that I've been here. And I feel like they've done so much with this space. It's a more welcoming place. I didn't find my way in here very often before, but now they host Drag Queen Bingo, they host forums like this. It just runs again anything you can imagine, Other places right across the street, we've got Namaste, which is a brand new restaurant, which is delicious. That hasn't been here the whole time. So I do see that there are new businesses coming in. I know that sometimes people focus on the more negative aspect of that, about businesses leaving, but every time something leaves, it feels like something new has a chance to get started.
Well, it's definitely changed. There was a JCPenney, there was a Sears, there was probably some other stores. There was a shoe store that was locally owned. So that was when I came here. And that isn't the way of the future anymore. We hear so many people saying, I want Greenfield to be like it was. But that's not going to happen. We've created a new paradigm, a new path forward that involves a lot more experiences, such as Hawks and Reed, such as the ability to go to a variety of restaurants. I can guarantee you that there was not so many interesting restaurants run by interesting people from all across the world in Greenfield in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It really has been a focused effort on the part of many people to create the environment that will allow us to invite into more types of businesses in Greenfield, in the downtown area. I think that we'll be able to work on what we know is working here, which is entertainment and experiences, creating a vibrant neighborhood that allows us to have interesting events, some events free, some not free. So thank you to those of you who took the chance to start a business here, and we appreciate that, and we're looking forward to more of you doing that.
What similar sized cities do you look to for successful downtown models and why?
So we have Turner's Falls, not very far from here, and actually downtown Turner's is slightly closer to my house than downtown Greenfield. And they started off as a place that was not necessarily a place where you wanted to go and spend a lot of time and live with your family. But they've got really neat stuff going on downtown. I used to go to Arcadia with my sister all the time. And so having those neat businesses like that, I think we can see, similar businesses starting in Greenfield. I also look a lot at Brattleboro, and I know that their landscape is different. They've got, the river right there, which is not something we're going to be able to replicate. But I love that feel that they have in Brattleboro, where it's a working class town. It's not ritzy. It's got some grit to it, but they're hardworking people, and they've really done a lot to take care of their downtown. And I think that we look at that also.
Yes. I look to Turner's Falls, which is wonderful, and they have done a very good job of starting their creative economy and focusing on that. We too will do that. The creative economy represents about 9.2% of our existing businesses right now, and that's pretty amazing. And I look forward to focusing on the creative economy as one of the new businesses that we can utilize and further have in our downtown area. I also like the city of East Hampton, who has done a great job of adaptive reuse of their buildings, and I want to focus on taking some looks at creating adaptive reuse overlay districts for our downtown area so that we can reutilize some of our buildings that are underutilized or have not been taken care of, and bring them back to life. I think that is the future of Greenfield, given we have land here, and we want to focus on downtown, and most of those are downtown.
So we already started down this path, but now I'm curious about some tools that you would use to bring your vision into action. So a question related to this is, what are 2 regulations you would create, eliminate, or change to facilitate business development in downtown? Thank you, audience.
I just finished, but okay, I'll start. Well, I'll continue that conversation. So I have plans for different things. I would like to continue the discussion here right now about the adaptive reuse overlay districts. What they will do is allow us to modify the different uses of the buildings that are currently being underutilized, as well as modify some of the restrictions that are in the underlying zone. And I don't think we're ready for my TED Talk on zoning, so I'm not going to do that. But that's one thing. We can also focus on an arts overlay district, and all of that would be picking a particular area of downtown. I think I'm kind of sitting in it. We're all sitting in it and looking at it, where we can create the identity that will keep us on the map and will bring people in. So those are 2 things I think would be very helpful to furthering downtown businesses. I would also like to also talk about a pop-up retail ordinance that allows us to have temporary permitting, for short-term businesses, as long as up to 45 days and with an opportunity to re-up for 90 days. So those are 3 things that I have been thinking about.
Okay. Great. Sheila?
I think it's important for us to start looking at more Main Street zoning, and this doesn't speak specifically to businesses as much, but so that, sorry. I think we could have more housing downtown above, on the 2nd and 3rd floors of these businesses, would help people lower their rent so that they do have more money to spend downtown. I think that there are a lot of sort of regulations that get in the way, like when people need to go to such and such a board and they only meet once a month and maybe they don't have a quorum. It sort of slows things down. I know that we have some regulations that can be a little bit on the subjective side. So I'd like to take a look at some of those and make sure that everything is being applied fairly across the board when new businesses do come in looking for specific licenses. Another thing, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Could I have just a couple more seconds?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you 30 seconds and I'll also go back to Sheila about something she said.
Collect her thoughts there. The adaptive reuse overlay district actually is focused on mixed use. It is to relax so that in the district we don't have just housing or we don't have just commercial. We have a mix. So I think that's a good way to go, and I look forward to talking to the town councilors about how to get that to happen, and the planning board.
Sheila, you mentioned something about subjective regulations. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, so this one isn't really under the city's purview, but I think that it's a little bit archaic that we can't have housing in the same building as a marijuana establishment because it's not nuclear waste. And I know that it's it's not. I know that it was only recently legalized for recreational use, but I think that when you try and act like this kind of business is bad and we can't have this business in the same building as this other use, I think that those are burdensome regulations, and we have to wait for the state to come along, and we have to modernize that. And that's what makes me think we need to look at some of these other things that are more subjective, because we are using old laws that just haven't been changed.
Thank you. There are good and bad landlords in every community. How big is Greenfield's landlord problem, and what would you do to solve it? Wait, audience, help me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is just going to be your job.
So, I try to take it with a grain of salt when people talk to me about specific landlord problems, because you need to get both sides of the story. I think that I have heard things about how landlords are charging too much for rent, and then if you go and try to get the other side of the story, you find out that they have some accessibility regulations that they're not able to afford to make the upgrades that they need. And one of the things that's really difficult is you can't, when you're trying to become ADA compliant, it's not enough to just do one thing. Once you get to a certain point, you have to do the whole thing. And that can be really burdensome for people who don't necessarily have tons of money. We're not talking about big real estate moguls. I think that there are some bad actors in town, but I think that we need to give everybody, a chance to try to fix some of these things, rather than just treat all of them as if they're all the same. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
Right. The good news is, particularly with downtown, we are getting some new landlords. In some cases, you can see that a lot of these vacant storefronts, they're vacant for a reason. Some landlords are changing over, and new people are purchasing their properties. So in terms of downtown area, I think we'll see some new changes. We're already seeing with Rise Above and some other things. And that's just the life cycle of a city and the life cycle of a property. I think that there are other ways to entice, sort of a carrot and a stick type of thing. Landlords, we can do a vacant rental ordinance if we have to get there. I'm in agreement with Sheila on this, in that I think we give our landlords an opportunity to fill our storefronts or fix their properties up. And if they don't, then perhaps we need to have an ordinance that allows us a system of small fines that would gradually increase as their property stayed vacant. That's one opportunity. It's not something that I would go to firsthand. I think having someone in the executive office or the Office of Economic Development who has an opportunity to consult with our landlords on what their issues are is a good way to go.
Great. The 2014 Sustainable Master Plan calls for the creation of a staff position to market Greenfield, its culture, and its attractions. Do you support this action? And if so, how would you advocate for its implementation? Roxann.
Well, I certainly do support it. When I announced in February, it was one of the linchpins of my economic development program. Greenfield has been a secret for far too long, and the marketing of it in a very holistic way is virtually non-existent. So a marketing position does several things, not the least of which is coordinate our messaging. we need to focus on what our assets are, and I think I enumerated some earlier. And it doesn't have to be a position that's funded right off the bat. We have an opportunity with our higher education organizations. The Eisenberg School of Management, for example, can take on the initial marketing research as a project. And I have been talking to some folks down at Eisenberg that will allow that to happen, and we can build our case for the importance of marketing Greenfield and having a position within there. And I'm glad you mentioned the master plan, because I had an opportunity to lead that process, and it was really wonderful. Hopefully we'll talk about it a little more this evening.
Yeah, so in short, I do support the idea that we need to market our downtown. I think that when I was moving to Greenfield, and I told my coworkers down at UMass that I was moving here, there were some people who were surprised that this was where I chose to be, because they hadn't been here in 10 years or 20 years. And I feel like we have a reputation that we don't deserve. And even though the facts may have changed, the reputation hasn't. So we need to get the word out to other people that this is a really great place to be. We are not unfriendly to business. We're not unfriendly to families. We're not unaffordable. And people need to understand that. And we want to see people moving in. We want to see younger people coming and bringing their families. We want, more students enrolled in our schools. And I think that the way we do this is we start talking about that lifestyle. So like I was saying when I answered that first question, it's not just about like being in business for business sake. It's about marketing that lifestyle and how great it is to live in Greenfield and the community that we have here. And there's something about that that's not just about dollars and cents. It's also, selling that ethos that this is the place to be.
All right, let's move on to talking about the people in the downtown.
Oh, finally.
Yay, people! Do you think population density is a good thing for downtown? If so, how would you promote it?
Yes, your problem. Your sir. I think density is the most beneficial way to grow a town, because our footprint isn't going to get any wider unless we want to go out and conquer Gilmour Falls. So if we're going to grow our population, which is another way to lower our taxes and extend our tax base, we need to make sure that any growing we're doing is growing up and not growing out. I don't think the people who live out in the further precincts on the outside of town, where they are very more sparsely populated, I don't think they want to see their, I don't think they want to subdivide their land out there, and some of them do use it for agricultural, purposes. So downtown, we need to start looking at how tall, buildings can safely be. We need to look at some of the housing stock that we have here, because some of it really is in need of repair. I know very little of it is accessible, and with an aging population and with a large population that lives with disabilities, we need to make sure that we're accounting for, everybody to have a place here. I believe I saw a statistic recently that we have more people living with disabilities here in Franklin County than in the rest of the state. And that's something that we need to accommodate for when we're making these plans.
Well, if you've been looking at voter maps a lot like I have, you'll see that downtown is already very dense, or the downtown neighborhood area. And I do think of downtown as not just Main Street, but a few streets, the spokes of it, and down to Deerfield Street and so forth. But it is dense, and it's got room for more people. It really does, and that's why we do want to encourage mixed use, so that developers or business property owners who want to create housing on the upper floors and on the top floors, and businesses or offices on the second floor, and more retail and service-oriented businesses on the first floor or street level. That's why we need to encourage them to do that. We need to have the zoning that allows for this. And I think that we can focus on bringing people. If you bring the people, the businesses will follow, because the people drive what businesses you want to have in your downtown, and I think we're seeing that already.
Great. We heard some things about designing a building for the aging population in Greenfield. What about young families? What will your vision for downtown have to offer young citizens, in particular those under the age of 12 and their families?
When we were doing the master plan, particularly in the Economic Development Committee, and I actually see several familiar faces here of people that were part of that committee, we focused a lot on the aging population and how we can help them age better in place. Hence the ADU bylaw, the ordinance that was already passed. And we focused on bringing young people in, and that was where we were looking to focus a lot of our marketing efforts and also creating our downtown. So just the other day, I was having a conversation with someone, a much younger person. I would qualify her as in her late 30s or 40s, and she said they moved to Greenfield. They love living in Greenfield. They can go to the Y. They can go to the library, soon to be a brand new and even better library. And they like downtown because they have a lot of things to do here already, some of which don't cost them any money. That's something else we need to think about, is having more events that are child-centered. I was just at the, what was it that was here last week? I don't know, my grandchildren were here a week ago. Yes, Dino Days, what a great idea. And right here on this stage was a wonderful play, all put together by children. So more of that, please.
Yeah, so I can tell you, when I moved here, my oldest was in 7th grade. So I know that I moved here because Greenfield was, the housing was affordable enough that I could live here on my income working in UMass. The schools, were good enough that I knew that my kids were going to get a strong education. And also the programming in the schools. My oldest son just graduated from Greenfield High School. He was there. He was the first graduating class that had been there from 8th grade academy all the way through his senior year without being in the old building. And he spent a lot more time focused on the music program than on any of his other more academic subjects. My middle son's on the football team, and there is these extracurricular activities that really make school worthwhile for them, and that's what, kept them hanging on and keep them doing their homework. I think that parents need to, parents tend to think about, quality of the education and the experiences that their kids get, and that's what's going to move them here. I think we also might want to look at building a teen center, and it's not something that I've been able to get a lot of details about, but it is something that I think we should be looking at in the next several years, at least starting to plan for that. Because we do want our kids to have somewhere to go, and it's not, they don't want to hang out at school, they don't want to hang out at home, and, if they're being scouting or, hang out at the Y, if we have a teen center that's free, then that would be another great space for them.
So the next question is also in the bucket of people who live here. Many post-industrial cities are seeing new populations moving in as students, residents, and business owners. In many cases, these demographic shifts are surfacing racial tensions. Do you see this being a problem in Greenfield? And if so, how would you approach this problem? Well, Sheila, I think, goes first, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do see some tension around race relations in Greenfield, and I have noticed that there are more people of color moving to town, and I think that that's a good thing. My kids think that's a good thing, and that's the values that I raised them with. So I think that it's unfortunate that we do have some neighbors who are less tolerant. I think that The best way for people to overcome some of these differences is to recognize that all of us all just kind of want the same things out of life. We all want to raise our families, we want to be happy, we want to be safe, and we want to just be good neighbors. I'm hoping that a little bit of exposure is going to help some people who have lived in a very, very white town for a very long time. Hopefully if they do get to know some of their neighbors, they will be able to change some of these attitudes. I'm not naive enough to think that that's going to be the only thing that it's going to take. So that's going to be a difficult problem, and I don't know that there's necessarily like one, solution that's going to fit for everybody.
I think that, yes, we do have some racial tensions, and it may or may not have been brought on by new people moving into town. I happen to think that new people moving into town of any race is a wonderful thing and a very good thing. I can tell you, going back to that question regarding how have things changed, certainly when we moved here in 1980, it was very much a white town, but slowly but surely over the 10 years thereafter, we could see that more people were moving into town, people of color. And I was delighted about that. I grew up on the Texas-Mexico border, and I lived in Brownsville, Texas, and had many friends and many families that were friendly to us that were not white like us. But we were actually a member of the minority. So I think that living amongst people is the best way to have this happen. If you think about Main Street, since we're talking about downtown, look at the number of immigrants that have opened businesses here or certainly people of color, that have opened businesses just here on Main Street. Plus, I think people need to stop and think for a minute. Greenfield, many of it are very strong businesses that have been employing people here for a long time, were started by immigrant families that came to Western Massachusetts. That's it.
Okay, this question is for Roxann, or we'll start with Roxann. Do you think downtown Greenfield should prioritize pedestrians, bicyclists, and activity downtown over commuters driving through it? So we'll start with you and then we'll finish it.
Well, I think it's worth looking at. I think it's definitely worth studying how to make Greenfield a more transit-friendly place. It was certainly a big part of the master plan. I know that we called for a walkability plan. I don't know that the Sustainable Greenfield Implementation Committee, I don't know where they're at on that or what, if anything, they are doing with the transportation section. But I think the goals of the master plan were always to focus on switching us as gently as we can. Right now, I can just tell you our walkability score is low. It's 38. That means you need to use a car to do most of your errands. So certainly focusing on walkability, certainly focusing on how to make us a more bicycle-friendly and an easier way to ride your bicycles in town, whether it's changing traffic patterns, changing how we travel on our streets. It's a good conversation to begin having now. But people do have to move out and walk, take their cars to go out of town. So creating more economic development in the town will keep people here, make them maybe want to work or take their bus to work.
Sheila? Yeah, I'm nervous about framing it as, one group versus another group, because I think that has created a lot of problems in Greenfield when we sort of frame things that way with these dichotomies. A lot of the people who are driving through downtown would like to take public transit, but it's just not available. There are some others who, maybe they would walk if they lived just a little bit closer or if things were more convenient. So I think that if we're trying to make Greenfield, more walkable and more transit friendly, more convenient for everybody. I think we are going to see a decrease in automobile traffic, but I think realistically we're always going to have that because there are people who will work out of town. There are a lot of people who travel, and being so close to Route 2 and 91, if someone's going, if we need to get out of town to get somewhere, I think Main Street is the closest, most convenient way for people to get there. So I wouldn't want to see it completely shut down to cars, but I think that we need to be less dependent on automobiles for reasons even outside of Greenfield. I mean, it's just there are environmental reasons why sustainability is near and dear to me, and I think that's something where we need to focus a lot of our energy. And I think that by providing these other options for people, hopefully that we'll see a little bit of a culture shift, but I think it's going to be really difficult to just shut it off and say no cars.
I'll ask a follow-up question. So both of you, it seems like, want to promote walking. There's agreement on that. Can you give me one specific example of something you would do to encourage walking on Main Street or downtown generally? Sheila, thank you.
So I think if we're improving accessibility downtown, it's going to be a lot easier. These are things that I don't necessarily think about as, a younger, able-bodied person, but anybody who uses, any kind of adaptive equipment to get by, they have a much harder time. And I think if you're making this a more pleasant experience for people who are using adaptive equipment, you're making it easier for everybody. So if you're walking around and there are sidewalks that are, right now they're torn up because they're being repaired, so that doesn't help. But anything with, cracks and, oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was going to pull off.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. We'll just move to you, Roxann.
Okay, well, accessibility is definitely part of it. I think we need to always be mindful of the fact that our sidewalks are more accessible. People walk, I find that people walk into town a lot from the neighborhood that I live in, which is just more or less the same neighborhood that Sheila lives in, a couple of streets away. I think encouraging more people to be in the downtown area and live here encourages them to consider walking instead of the more businesses we have down here, the more they're going to be attracted down here. And they will realize that they don't need to walk, that they don't need to drive their car to, 3 blocks to do whatever they want to do. Let's walk.
This question, we'll start with you, Roxann, again. This is also about walking. People like to walk in Greenfield.
What more can we say?
What would you support a crosswalk in front of Greenfield's Market?
Short answer, yes. Like I say, short answer, yes. I can't tell you how many times I've wished for that crosswalk to be there. It feels like on a regular, almost daily basis, whether I'm going into Greenfield's Market or one of the other businesses around there. And let's face it, people already do walk across the street there. And I almost see people instinctively driving in their cars going down, slowing down as they approach Greenfield's Market, if they know anything about Greenfield at all. And so I would support that, and I would support better lighting so that when people are wearing their black coats in the winter and they're walking across the street, we can see them if we happen to be driving down Main Street.
Thank you. Sheila?
Yeah, I think I know who submitted that question.
Yeah.
And this is something that has gotten a lot of airplay, and I don't understand why we don't just have one, except that, it is complicated. You can't just put in a crosswalk anywhere you want. We have to make sure that there are curb cuts and there are regulations. So yeah, I think that is something that we need to look at. And, since I had extra time this time, I'll say when I first moved to Greenfield, I remember people crossing in front of the market. I said, why doesn't anybody use the crosswalk around here? I felt like tourists because I was using them.
Okay, we're going to start with you, Sheila, on this one. Greenfield, as any city, has limited resources for capital projects. Give examples of 2 specific capital projects that you would prioritize in your first year in office.
The fire station is absolutely the first thing that I think we need to prioritize. They've been in there for way too long. In fact, I was talking to a firefighter recently he's my age, and I think he's always worked there. He told me when he first got there, oh, don't worry about it, they're replacing it in a couple of years. So that's a problem. They need to move. They've been making do with what they have for way too long. After that, I'm really hoping that there's not the library, but voters may decide that one.
Well, I think one of the most important things we can do is really long-term and is citywide is our infrastructure, our sewer and water, and making sure that we do fund upgrades for our water and sewer. It's not sexy. It isn't above ground, but it is absolutely critical to our economic development, whether it's our economic development downtown or our economic development anywhere else in town. So I will always, as mayor, focus on making sure that we promote the capital budget pieces that deal with our infrastructure. And then beyond that, yes, a new fire station. Now that new fire station right now isn't slated to be right downtown, but it is in what I would consider our urban core neighborhood, and is moving it off of downtown, and it may actually make it a little easier for it to for them to get out and get to the other areas of town because they're not having to fight downtown traffic. So standing on the street corners on Saturday, you really understand it, because I can't think of a Saturday I've been out here that there wasn't a call out for fire. And it is difficult, particularly on those days when it is very congested downtown. So clearly a new fire station, and actually it would be okay if we worked on the police station at some time part down the road and make sure that we have some downtown policing and some place for them to be down here as well.
Great, thank you. This question is for we'll start with you, Roxann. When you are mayor, people will disagree with you. How will you tackle those disagreements? How will you approach that?
Well, I was joking when I shook my head. It wasn't going to happen. You don't serve 16 years on the planning board and not understand that people are going to disagree with you. And I'm still here, and I'm running for mayor, so it wasn't all that bad. I must have been able to appease some of the people some of the time. But at any rate, like I always deal with people, I try very hard to understand what it is they're trying to get across, even through their anger. And if I can provide a solution or promise to at least look into it. I've had plenty of emails through this campaign, people disagreeing with me or wanting to know very pointedly how I was going to handle something. So I feel like quick response, open communication, trying to understand the other person's concerns, and then making a decision. At some point, you just have to make those decisions, and they're not all going to be happy decisions for some people.
Thank you. Sheila?
Yeah, so I think that it's important to try to build consensus where we can, and recognizing that, there are some people who just will dig in their heels and they will not compromise. And I think that is a minority. Sometimes they're a very loud minority, and sometimes forget how tiny the group they can be. But I think that if everybody gets a chance to weigh in, if everybody gets a chance to feel like they're heard and they have some sort of say at least they walk away feeling respected if they don't get exactly what it is that they want. And I think that we can go a little bit further on building consensus. I think that there are some things that happen that, people don't feel like they were necessarily part of the decision-making process. So bringing some people in is going to go a long way.
Great. This is one of my favorite questions. I think people will know what this is about. What will you do about the giant hole on Chapman Street? You submitted this. I like this
I actually had someone write to me about the giant hole on Chapman Street not long ago, and I was trying to figure out who owned it. And it's currently owned by a private party, so I don't think there's a whole lot that we can do to sort of strong arm that person into doing anything about it. Unless we want to start getting into that whole carrot and stick thing. I haven't had a chance to address it with the owner, so I don't want to say what I would do to follow up. I'm hoping that there are plans for that. My understanding is that there are plans that fell through, so hopefully it was just an expensive project and we can find a less expensive project that would be suitable. If this comes down to remediation, then I think we need to start looking at ways that we can help the owner remediate the property. So depending upon what it is that's preventing that property from being developed, I think we need to try and at first work with the person and try and get something there. Or, I don't know, maybe we can just put in a gigantic sculpture and maybe no one will.
Well, interestingly enough, this came up at the second Opportunity Zone meeting this week. Maybe it was last week. And the owner of that property was there, and I can't say that I strong-armed him, but I did walk by and hold his arm in it and tell him that we need, and I think Rachel saw me do it. She was there when I did it. Rachel Roberts over there. We do need to do something with that. It was originally going to be a hotel, and I think a downtown hotel would be wonderful. It did fall through. The financing on that did fall through, and for whatever reasons, the person who owns that piece of property wasn't willing to carry that boat himself. It is a piece of private property. It's a little more difficult to, without carrying a big stick, to get them to do something with it. But working with them, talking to them, trying to understand their problem, and then hopefully at some point they get inspired by an idea or someone comes along to help them get inspired.
Sorry, administrative things. I'm going to give you each now for your closing 2 minutes to inspire your peoples. And I feel like I don't know who should start this one. I'm going to do an audio. What did you do last time? Everyone's had drinks. No one remembers.
We could be more inspired.
Okay, we had a concrete suggestion. Roxann opened first, so let's have Sheila end, or go first for the ending.
First.
And first.
Alright, so most of you know me. I know that there are some faces in here that I don't recognize, but my name is Sheila Gilmour, and I hope that all of you will reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you. I got them all right now. Alright, so my name is Sheila Gilmour, and I would like to invite everybody to reach out to me and talk to me if you have any other questions that we haven't addressed so far. I know that when I've been talking to people at the doors, we talk a lot about economic development, so it's nice to have a forum focused just on this. Instead of kind of a wide gamut of things that a mayor may or may not even have control over. So, if you want to reach out, my email is Sheila for Greenfield @gmail.com. You can call me at 413-387-7454. And I'm just happy to talk to people and see kind of what you're doing.
I was going to do the same thing because
No,
this whole
you're
apparatus
fine.
has been bothering me all week.
No, you're good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, I've talked to a lot of people over the last several months. It's been wonderful. And the more I talk to people, the more I actually want to be mayor of Greenfield. So, because I really feel like my experience, both as a member of the school committee focusing on education, and my experience on the planning board focusing on economic development, are really and truly two of the things that we need to attract businesses, to attract young families, and to create a better, more vibrant, and sustainable, and inclusive Greenfield. Not just the downtown in that case, but all of Greenfield, because this is the way we want to go. We want us to have a vibrant, workable community. So I look forward to getting your votes on November 5th, and thank you so much for all of your input throughout the campaign and for being here tonight. The energy in this room is fantastic. It was great just standing around talking to people beforehand. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for letting me be here and talking to you both. And Greenfield, your future seems to be female. Hey everyone, my name's Alyssa. I'm a board member of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. I'm just here to wrap things up and say thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our candidates for your very interesting and inspiring thoughts on our downtown. Thank you so much to Ancia for moderating and joining us tonight. Thanks to our audience for all of your helpful participation. We're wrapping up a little bit early, so feel free to hang out, grab a drink at the bar, make sure you tip your bartender. There's also open mic comedy night downstairs after if you really want to make a night of it. The Neighborhood Association's next quarterly meeting is January 21st. If you signed up for our email list out front or on our website, you'll get an email reminder of that, but save the date. And yes, remember to vote November 5th.